And you've said that when a business's value proposition truly aligns with the right client profile, there's a kind of magic that happens.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that magic that comes out when it lands.
When it lands really well, you're not pushing something uphill. When it lands really well, you can have a meeting and talk about a concept, and the client is ready to hear it, and you understand how to take them through the process. So, I had a client who was doing a lot of work on putting out thought leadership,
Hmm.
and it was a little bit random and it was ad hoc and more opportunistic. And if I had put a plan around how to build a formalized thought leadership program to someone that hadn't even done that,
Right.
it wouldn't have worked. But the client was at the right spot, and I recognized that they could get some value from some of the programs that I could introduce. And when we went through that program, I could see his eyes light up, the CEO, because he was thinking, yeah, I mean, I could build this for myself. I could scale this into a business line. It will help the company grow. And so you could kind of see, and that energy is just contagious. And just those meetings and those opportunities don't happen as frequently or as easily if there isn't that alignment.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's,
So really
yeah,
finding that space where they're ready to go to that next stretch level.
yes,
Right. I mean, which is really similar to what I do, right? With my clients, it's like getting them ready for that next stretch level and helping them step into it there
yes.
is magic in that. And when they step into their, whatever they're doing. Hello, my extraordinary women friends. If you have ever felt like your marketing isn't quite landing, or like you're doing all the things but not gaining real traction, you're going to love this conversation with my longtime friend, Kris Howery. Kris is the founder of Agentive Marketing, and she's one of the smartest strategic minds I know. Agentive Marketing is an agency that provides fractional CMO services to growth stage companies and founders. She brings decades of experience from global brands like S&P Global and IBM, and now channels that wisdom into helping business owners develop marketing strategy that delivers real go-to-market results. In today's episode, we talk about how to recognize your right fit clients, what marketing mistakes to avoid as you scale, and how clarity becomes a growth accelerant. Kris brings a rare blend of big brand savvy and soulful alignment, and her insights are going to spark ideas for how you can fine tune your next season of growth. And speaking of alignment and momentum, we are just weeks away from my 11th annual Extraordinary Women Ignite conference. This is where women entrepreneurs come to raise their voices, grow their visibility, and expand their impact. If you're craving a room of high vibe women to grow with, you belong in this fire. Use the code EWR for $200 off your ticket at CamiGellner.com/ignite. Now let's meet Kris Howery. Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio, Kris. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is a story I've been wanting to tell. What you've been building is really amazing. And you and I go way, way back. I was even thinking about how many years, but it's been more than 20, probably closer to 30. Yeah, yeah. We used to work together at IHS like back in our corporate days. And Kristen, you went on and you carried on a very impressive career going with S&P Global, IBM, and now you've founded your own agency called Agentive Marketing. So congratulations. I love your journey.
Thank you very much. And
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
glad you've been along the journey
yeah.
with me.
Me too. I've loved being on your journey with you. So tell us a little bit about what shaped the decision to start your own company.
I was pretty fortunate because I did have these really nice roles in these really big companies. And I know some people say, they don't like that. But you know what? I got training. I got to work with really smart people, and I got to move around and do a bunch of different roles. So I got the opportunity to learn so much. I was with today it's S&P, but at the time it was IHS. I was with them for 17 years.
That's a
And
long
so
time.
I know. And so I had the comfort of working with people that I knew, but at the same time doing lots of different things. And yeah, I mean the brain, the whatever you call that, it was the brain trust is huge. And so and I really enjoy that. So as I started to progress in my career, what I realized is the roles changed and the responsibilities changed, and they became much more bureaucratic in a way the more senior I got. And what I really liked is the messy middle, right? So
Yeah.
of when I think about marketing and broad marketing, I really enjoyed that go to market, the figuring out what how we're going to position the company, how we're going to position a new product. And most enjoyable was how do you bring people together along that
Mm.
journey? Because oftentimes, product will have a vision, the CEO will have a vision, the sales team will have a strategy, and those aren't necessarily aligned, let alone what marketing is going to say to the prospects. And so, what was I really enjoyed is bringing those groups together so that you're all rowing in the same direction. And what I found is that there's a lot of mid-sized companies that are just ripe for having that level of professionalism, that have
Hmm.
kind of exhausted all of the traditional marketing that they understand, but they're not really ready to make an investment in a CMO or some more senior marketing skills. And they probably don't need to because they're not big enough. But what I found is there's this sweet spot. And I thought, what if I started my own business? And what if I could do what I love to do? And this will kind of get onto our topic. What if I could do what I really love and make money at it and just have it be my own, have it be something that I can build?
I love this so much. I mean, because you talk about that messy middle where, where the further you get up into an organization, it does get more political. But that messy middle where you really loved thriving was like, this is where I want to play. It's like, let's skip all the politics and all that other side of it and just go into really helping people at a different level. And
Yeah.
I so agree. It's like, startup companies that are growing their businesses, they don't have the budget to go hire that CMO. And they often will be, and I've been in startups myself where, you see that what happens is you get people who think they get marketing or they think they know what marketing is. And they
Everyone
drive
does.
it and yeah, they drive it in all these different crazy spaces. And what you're really bringing is this comprehensive strategy to look at it and say, okay, what's the best way to do this?
Yeah. I mean, I have, this is really interesting. And I have a client who would like to change their brand perception, right? They want to be more this, I'm not going to say what, rather than
Hmm.
that. And I
Hmm.
said, okay, if you want to change your brand perception, let's think about that. And they come back to me and they say, okay, here's the next 10 things we're going to do. And I'm like, all of those things are all about that thing that you don't want to do and be known for because you want to be known for, for this thing. And it was like, that's right. Because we get stuck, right? And we get stuck in doing what we know. And it's always worked. It's usually
Right.
worked to get to a certain level of growth. And then really to get to the next stage, you need to do something different. And that's the fun and that's the part that I enjoy.
I love it. So you talk about the idea that your ideal client is an expression of you. Can you tell us a little bit more what that means?
I can. So, when you think about your ideal client, when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing when I was starting off. I just had this concept, and it took me a long time to refine it, like more than a year to refine it and to get to this stage.
Which is really
Where
normal, by the way, really
well, and
normal.
I didn't know, right? So I didn't know this. And so, at the beginning I was opportunistic. And so I would have been willing to take anything. And so I remember there was this sole proprietor, and I think I can say this, and I'm not calling anyone out, but he was a tree trimmer. Yeah, he trimmed trees.
Yep.
Great little business. Was thinking of expanding beyond his local area, moving out. Well, you know what he probably needs? He needs a tactical marketer that can help him do, level one marketing, right? To get the word out. So he got forwarded to me. And so I build this proposal, this strategy. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? And I'll tell you, I probably would never have been any help to him, right? And the things that I would have been saying for him to do would have been they just wouldn't have been able to consume what I was sharing with him because he was at a different stage in his business. And so there's such a misalignment, but I went. And so imagine if I had gotten that. Well, I don't think I'd have very much fun
Right.
because I'd be
Because
having
it's
to
not the
do
kind of
some,
marketing you like to do.
yeah, nor am I, is that where my experience is? And
Right.
that's kind of the big thing is what do you do? What do I do that I know that I do really well? And I'll tell you, it's sitting in that go to market, the more strategic space. And so going after clients that aren't there and that don't fit the ideal client is not going to work. If I'm going after companies that are outside of my core area, if I'm going after people that I know aren't really aligned with who I am, with my values, it's not going to work, and it's going to be a messy engagement at best, and it's going to probably is probably not going to benefit me or the potential client. And so figuring out what I'm about, what I value, what I do well, and what I can bring to a client is that fit that creates some real magic, because when I find the right client that I can provide the right benefit for, it's like this virtual circle, right? Where I provide good work, they receive the benefit, and it just continues to grow and grow. And so that took me a long time to discover, though.
And
I think
what did you
having,
land on? What
so what
what
did
was
I,
the yeah, what was the unique
so what I like to do is I like to get to a stage where I work with companies, obviously B2B space.
yeah,
B2C,
that's your
B2C is
background. You've been
interesting,
there.
but that's
Yeah.
my background. That's where,
Yeah.
eyes
Yeah.
closed, I got this space. I also like to have companies that have hit a certain threshold in revenue, because if they haven't hit that revenue threshold, unless they're uber growth oriented, and that requires a lot of cash and a lot of funding, but if they haven't hit that, the things that I can do, they don't really have the budget for. They're not ready because they're still figuring things out, right? And so the big Uber lifts, they're just not ready for that. So it's the next stage. It's the probably closer to 10, but who's counting? But that 10 million plus, where they're really ready for some growth. Clients that I like are involved in the technology space and the manufacturing. They're more industrial. I'll tell you, if I went to, I don't know, I can't think of anything offhand. I'd have to take the time and learn the space,
The
learn
space,
learn
right?
the business
A
better.
different industry, you would have to really
Different
learn it.
industry, yeah. And so automatically, if I hit that sweet spot, that's then I've got that really going. But what else really matters is when I talk to them, what are they like? What are they like as people? What kind of teams do they have? How is that organization focused on their people? How do they treat their people? There's got to be a fit there too, because
Absolutely. Because you've been on the opposite side where it's not been the right fit, and it's like, you
yes,
know that it's like, and that's the beautiful thing about it being entrepreneurs, having our own businesses, we get to choose. We get to make those
yes,
choices.
yeah. And I think that took me a long time to realize that I get to choose.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah.
fearful. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to get some business,
Yeah.
but having the patience and waiting it out, then that creates real momentum for my business. It
Yeah.
has, at least.
Yeah. I love it. And you've said that when a business's value proposition truly aligns with the right client profile, there's a kind of magic that happens.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that magic that comes out when it lands.
When it lands really well, you're not pushing something uphill. When lands really well, you can have a meeting and talk about a concept, and the client is ready to hear it, and you understand how to take them through the process. So I had a client who was doing a lot of work on putting out thought leadership,
Hmm.
and it was a little bit random, and it was ad hoc and more opportunistic. And if I had put a plan around how to build a formalized thought leadership program to someone that hadn't even done that,
Right.
it wouldn't have worked. But the client was at the right spot, and I recognized that they could get some value from some of the programs that I could introduce. And when we went through that program, I could see his eyes light up, the CEO, because he was thinking, yeah, I mean, I could build this for myself. I could scale this into a business line. It will help the company grow. And so you could kind of see, and that energy is just contagious. And just those meetings and those opportunities don't happen as frequently or as easily if there isn't that alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. So really finding that space where they're ready to go to that next stretch level.
Yes.
Right. I mean, which is really similar to what I do, right? With my clients. It's like getting them ready for that next stretch level and helping them step into it is
Yes.
there is magic in that. And when they step into their doing,
Yeah.
it's
And I'm vested in them. I'm vested in my clients. I'm vested in their business. I'm interested in seeing them grow. And that's, I think, the difference between doing this as a job and more so doing this as an opportunity to fulfill myself. Like, I
right.
don't, sure, there's a grind. I'm not Pollyannaing this whole thing. But at the end of the day, the work is really interesting. And I love it when we see success with a client. A client sees
Yeah.
success in their business, and we can
Yeah.
attribute that to some of the work that we did.
Yeah.
It just feels good.
Yeah. I know oftentimes when somebody comes to you, they're in that try everything mode. Like it's like, let's go do all the things, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage to that? And just how do you help redirect that ship, if you will?
Okay, well, besides, and this is through learning, besides having to do a kickoff strategy plan, because if I don't have that, boy, we're kind of blowing in the wind as things start happening, right? And I have had a client that like it's super excited and so just wants to do a lot of things. I just always ask, is this what's aligned with your so, and I sometimes have to ask myself that too. Is this aligned with my plan? And even if it is aligned with my plan, is it the fastest opportunity to revenue or the fastest, what fastest opportunity to success? And is there a cost? So, there's might be four things that you can pursue because people always say, let's do all four of these things. Well, what are the four that I can afford? Right? What are the four things that I can actually do? I have the resources to do. And which ones can I do the fastest? Which ones are going to create the best results? And usually, when they want to do 10 things, you can winnow that down to one pretty quickly when you ask those questions. And that's what I found is that's taken confidence. It takes confidence, right? I have to trust that I know what I'm doing and that the questions I ask are relevant to their business. And that's definitely, I wouldn't have been as comfortable in my 30s, my 40s doing something like that. And now it's really comfortable because I know you have to ask these questions. And so it's confidence and it's trusting the ability to know that all of these marketing things and all of these things, there's actually purpose and intent behind them, and you can measure them. So that's, people think, well, we're just going to try it. Yeah, let's just try it. Not really. Like
Yeah.
that's not
It's a
the
lot of
best way to.
wasted effort that way, right?
It's a lot of wasted effort. Yeah.
And there's something about the zone of genius of the people that are within, a company and really be able to tap into their zone of genius of how they show up in a market, how they show up in when they're talking to customers, all of that ties into it as well. So being able to really know who your clients are and like where are they going and what's going to help them really get there much more quickly, but in alignment with their zone of genius.
I love that. I love that term, zone of genius. It's
Yeah.
true, right?
Because I mean, you can think of some people. I mean, I can think of even back to my corporate days. There were some CEOs that I work with that were great. And like you could give them a script, and man, they would go to town with that, and they would nail it, and it was just simple and easy for them. And then you give it to someone else, and it just wasn't the same thing. So it really needed a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes having the opportunity to know your client, to work with your client. And look, let's face it, at least for me, I can recognize those skills because I play in that area, because I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that. And that
yeah,
goes back to aligning me and my business with what my ideal client persona is.
yeah. Yeah.
that's when it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not to say that people can't get those skill sets. I mean, can always gain
Yeah.
those skill sets somewhere along the line, but I think that being in tune with who the people in the room are is really important as part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of listeners who are running and growing and building their own businesses here listening. From your perspective, what's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make when it comes to marketing?
Well, how long do we have for this interview? Because I can start with some of the things that I've done. So the number one thing is, I know when you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to bootstrap a lot of
Mhm.
things at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And so it's finding that balance between what you can bootstrap and where you really do have to make an investment. That's sort of easy. That's semi easy, right? To do that. What I find is harder is, a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm in the marketing space and I do this, start off thinking about themselves, right? Who am I? What am I? And that's important. And we've, talked about that. But really, you also have to consider the flip side of that. The other side of the mirror is, who is my ideal client? Right? Who am I and who's my ideal client? And sometimes when you're getting started as an entrepreneur, you're not thinking about that ideal client.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking about marketing things that maybe are for you, or that promote you, or that are about you, rather than putting that ideal client in the center. So
Mhm.
I can give you an example of my company name, Agentive. Okay. It means into action, right? That's fun. Oh, I get to tell you what it means. Do you realize that most people have a hard time saying that when they first hear it? Agent. Had I been a little
It's so
thoughtful
funny.
about naming my
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe I think into action is what I like, but let's think of something of, how's the client going to engage with it? And that's just, it's a silly example, right?
Well,
It's,
I had the
it's
same exact example because when I started my business, it was Syzygy, Syzygy, which means when there's three celestial bodies in alignment. So it's actually a word. It's got meaning behind it.
yeah,
And one, people could never say it. They could never spell it. They would say, is it synergy? No, it's syzygy. Yeah. And I love the whole meaning behind what it stood
yeah.
for, because that was like, the alignment of what we're doing and putting that out into, all of it. Right. But it was the same exact story. Here we are. We're longtime marketers, Kris.
Exactly. And I started thinking about my business, right? And so really it's, when you think back to the marketing question, is, how would that client or that person that I want to attract, how would they consume my information? Where would they consume? What are the words that they would relate to and that they would understand? And often those are similar
Yeah.
but
You're going
often
to
not.
speak your client's love language, right?
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
speak their language. And
Yeah.
I find that's probably the biggest,
It's also
making
making
those
me
hurdles.
laugh. What it's taking me back to is naming the Calgary, the Canadian product in IHS. Remember that? So for those of you listening, Kris was in Calgary. I was at the headquarters of our company, and we were naming products. We were naming a new product that was launching in Calgary. Yeah, it was quite the journey and quite the
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I always say I like naming products as much as I like, and this is what I used to say in the corporate world. I like naming products as much as I like going and trying on swimming suits.
The
It's
only
much
thing,
easier today, but back then, that's what I used to think of it.
yeah, I would say that I would add the only other thing I like maybe just as much is trade shows. I don't
Trade
know.
shows.
It's a tough call, naming products and trade shows. I
We
don't
did
know.
plenty of those back in the day. Back in the
I know.
day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we digress. So,
Okay.
really speaking your client's love language is what you're saying. Is for entrepreneurs, make sure that they're speaking the language that their customers are speaking and are using. Name your products in ways, name your company in ways that is something that they can align to and be and relate with.
Yes. Because you're starting your business, and so you're thinking about yourself. And even for the first little bit, oftentimes those decisions are what the entrepreneur knows and understands, and It's very difficult to stop thinking that way and to put your client. And I sometimes find after 30 years, I catch myself going back to, oh, wait a second. The client is at the center, right?
Yeah.
And the goes right back to, am I at the center with the client? Is there alignment? And that's why finding that alignment and picking your ideal client is so critical.
Yeah. I love it.
Full circle.
You talk about a lot about go to market. So just talk a little bit about go to market marketing and just how you approach it and how, I mean, so for anyone listening, like how can they apply that in their world?
So when I think about launching, let's just, whether it's a new product or you're going into a new space or like a new geographic region, or you're actually really any new initiative that you're taking on, you have to think of, how am I going to communicate this? How, not only to my target market, but how do I bring all the people that I need, whether it's in the marketing context, it can be, the product team,
The
the
sales
support
team,
team,
support team.
finance, HR. You don't often think of those. Sales, my goodness, they're the center of all of this. How do I bring them along this journey? And so we've done, people think, well, we're going to launch this thing with an email. Well, hold on. Go to market happens long before you start communicating with the prospects. It happens in the planning stage of the product evolution, happens in the planning stage of introducing it to potential customers who will give you that early feedback and validation. Have you ever, and now I'm really digressing about but why go to market is important. Have you ever heard that story of Juicerio?
No.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So big money. They were going to create a juicer. They did create a juicer.
Okay.
Millions and millions invested. If you Google it, you'll see the story. Founders were well known, top folks that had done this. And it essentially looked like an iPhone. It was so slick. It had one button, right? You just hit this one button and you get this amazing juice. But then, the people didn't want to have, this was going to be high end. So they didn't want to hassle with getting the fruit, making sure it was organic. So they said, well, let's just put it in a little packet. Okay, so they got this packet packed full of amazing, incredible juice things. And so you put the packet in the juicerio, and you'd hit that button because the whole thing looked like just a giant iPhone, right? Just one button. You'd hit that button, and out would come this incredible juice. And so they were launching it, and they had, I believe it was Bloomberg, in to do, some PR on it, and in
Hmm.
the offices. And they've got the packet, the Bloomberg person, rip it open, and instead of putting it into the juicer, the person just squeezed the juice out into the cup and added some water, and suddenly realized that you didn't have to spend $300. You could just use the packet. And so, somewhere in the go to market process, there
They
was a
didn't test
really
that.
big, they didn't test that. They didn't even, so they might not have talked to some customers or some prospects. They didn't test the user experience. And that's one component. But the story is, there's a lot of things you got to do before. And the biggest challenge often is, especially in B2B, is, let's say Juicerio worked great, but you hadn't told the sales team about it and you hadn't brought them along for the journey, because in B2B, it's the sales team that's your tip. You've got a really big gap. You've got a product ready to be sold, and the sales team can't effectively sell it. Whether they don't have the right materials, they don't buy into the product, and trust me, that happens, or they recognize that the time and effort spent to sell this product is not worth their time because they can make their commissions by selling something else. There's a series of complex issues that have to get solved in B2B around go to market and the sales enablement piece that, obviously, you can tell I'm starting to talk about with this with real passion, is a real sweet spot for me. And so, again, it goes back to, what do I love? I love the journey that marketing allows for in terms of bringing people along with you. So when the launch finally does happen and the whole next phase of go to market happens, you've brought a group that's going to help you, because in B2B, in any company, it really does take a team. There's no
Yeah.
one individual that can ever launch one thing on their own. And so keeping all those little stakeholders aligned is a really big part of it, and is lots of fun for me.
Yeah, just
So
really I
that's
love that bringing the whole team along with you on this
yeah,
journey. So, yeah,
yeah,
that's good. And I think you hit on another thing that I think is really important is just the market research. And I that's really fresh and top of mind to me right now because I've been doing a lot of market research and having conversation with a lot of women entrepreneurs. And it's shaping what's unfolding in my business right now. And I'm jazzed about the shifts and the changes that are happening right now. And so there's like this whole new energy that comes with those types of conversations. So when we pause and we go deeper into conversation with our clients, with our the people that are around us, our communities that we're in, whether it's with internal within a company or just the people around us, we get new insights, and
yeah.
that shapes what we create with our products.
That's right. That's right. I've been doing some consulting just with startups.
Hmm.
So we call these there's these luncheon sessions, and the startups come in and they pose the problem, and then there'll be three or four of us from different fields that will be able to provide input. And you know what I'm finding is having these conversations with the market is often really scary for these startups because they feel like so much is hinging on the first conversation, right? Like if I get this wrong, this whole thing is never going to go. And I remember sitting around with one particular company, and all of us advisors who didn't know each other said, "Hey, your business isn't going to go bust by having one conversation that doesn't go the way you want it to."
Right.
And most people actually haven't run into any always love to give an opinion. So if you frame your problem as a problem and you want their input, suddenly you're getting a whole wealth of information that if you were going in there to try and sell, that you wouldn't get. And
Right.
so the process of go to market, of just having the confidence to ask the questions, I think can be so powerful to a business. And
Mm.
I would love to do more of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So any advice that you would give an entrepreneur just as far as, doing that type of conversations, getting them into
Yeah,
it?
I mean, again, it goes back to if you pick something that you know about. It's really hard to pick a business that you know nothing about.
Right.
It can be done, but
But
hopefully
yeah,
you've
why? Why?
right. But if you pick that, you know enough, and you start with your circle, your closest circle, and you have those friendly conversations that might generate some ideas that allow you to go broader, and that allow you to go broader. And most people are willing to connect you to someone that they know, and they're willing to connect you to someone else. And having those conversations gives the entrepreneur a really good understanding of where their business has to go, but it also connects them with the community. And I
Right.
find building that connection and building that meaning, being part of something, is also really energizing for
Yeah.
a business, for an entrepreneur.
I
So,
would totally agree. It's that being part of okay, this is community number one. There's likeness in the conversations that's happening, and the second part of that is that the ideas that get generated from that help go to the next solve whatever is happening for people. So it's
absolutely.
so valuable. I love it. I love it. Okay, so you have been part of my mastermind for the past year, which has been amazing.
Yes.
I have loved seeing your business grow and everything that's happened. Just tell us a little bit about that journey and what have you learned in this past year?
I did not know you were going to ask that question, but I'm so glad that you asked that question because I wanted to weave that in. I honestly would, I love the program. I thought I'm a seasoned business professional, but I'll tell you, getting your perspective from someone who has helped many women start their own business. I mean, there's a skill in that, and you gain a lot of knowledge, and you've been doing this for a long time. Gave me the opportunity, I think, to learn so much faster and to help grow my business so much faster, where I'd still be doing stuff that wasn't quite right had I not had that guidance. So, number one, the starting with the reflection, the who am I? Why am I doing this? I didn't reflect, I wouldn't have reflected as much or as deeply without that guidance. And then you have such a great network of women
Yeah.
entrepreneurs
Yeah.
that I could go to. I could ask one person a question on something, and they weren't all marketers, right? But they all had experience in growing a business. And so having that network, that built in network, I thought was just incredible. And then finally, having really, really specifically, this would be the third thing, is having I had really specific questions on pricing. How was I going to price this? And having a go to person, right? That I could bounce ideas off, that could help me figure things that were probably, no, they're complicated, but breaking them down into digestible, next steps was invaluable. So again, those three things, that taking that learning that I got from you to take time to reflect, having that community, and then just having your expertise
Mm,
was, I'm eternally grateful
yeah.
and would not be where I am today.
Well, it's been really fun to be on this journey with you. Tell us a little bit about the milestones your business has gone through.
Well, I started off, and when I came, I had one client, and I'd had one retainer client. I'd had a few individual clients, and I'd picked some projects that probably weren't a good fit, right? And I had this phenomenal client, still really. I don't know. I love to see other entrepreneurs build their business, but not the ideal client, right? Not my B2B at certain revenue, not. And so I was doing all this stuff, and I was having a lot of fun working with them, but it wasn't
The
where
right fit.
where I the right fit. And so I was sitting at a level of revenue that was really didn't have any growth. I couldn't see any growth, and I would have had to have I would have had to do a volume style business, and I'm not a volume style girl, right? I'm much more strategic, consultative. And so it wasn't a good fit. And it took a while. Yeah, because it was hard. But we decided that, we weren't going to pursue the relationship. And because it wasn't a good fit for my business. And when I came to that decision and started to do, how could I miss this? Started to do business development, like you suggested repeatedly in your program, a good, are you doing it? Are you doing it? And when I started to focus on that, the right clients came. And so then I landed the first right client, and then the second right client, and it's grown. So the business has grown from less than six figures to, I would like to see us hit 500,000 in the next quarter, and hopefully go beyond that in the next year, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that growth, I just could not have imagined that growth the day that I met you and started talking to you, how to get there, just to even have a vision for how to get there.
Yeah.
And I would have thought it was just way too big of a goal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
And
it's
and
not
here it is. It's happening. So it's really fun.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. Well, congratulations, Kris. It's really been awesome seeing this unfold for you. So where can
Thank you.
people learn more about you and connect with you and learn more about Agentive?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can reach me, Kris Howery, on LinkedIn. Also, maybe I'll spell it out for you because it's not so easy to spell. AGENTIV, agentivmarketing.com. That's our website, so you can reach out to me there. And you can also reach out to this beautiful host who will, I'm sure, forward my
Totally connect you
information.
to Kris. Always, always, always.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
And
you.
then I always close with three pearls of wisdom. So what three pearls of wisdom would you like to leave with us today?
Be true to your gut, and really in anything, and take the time to connect to your gut and be true to it. Be honest in your dealings, and number one, be honest with yourself, and that goes back to the ideal client, right? Be honest with yourself, know what
Yeah.
you just be honest. And third one is, and this you've really helped with, is don't limit yourself. Don't put an arbitrary limit to what you can do. I had a limit of what I could do, and I'm realizing that limit was so low. And I don't know why that is, but don't cap yourself.
Yeah.
Be
I
open to
love it.
new possibilities.
Love it. Kris, this was so much fun. I love you, my friend, and thanks for jumping on here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.